so you may know that in 1974, the Church and Pike investigations, well, were just beginning. And these were the investigations in the United States into the CIA for the first time. So the Swedes were getting a really good look. All the other agencies in the world were getting a really good look at the CIA getting its guts ripped out and exposed. None of them wanted that to happen to them. And so the British MI6 was also getting a good kicking. An Australian journalist decided to give them a very hard time. And so this was all happening. So all of the other agencies of Europe basically dived deep and shut off all the lights as quickly as they could, right? And so this was what was going on for.
So that makes sense. That Manson, he was even crazy before he went into psycho space. But what more can I get about Maria Margareta? What was it, Nyström?
Well, she was clearly, she was probably, you know, that you can find out she was ideologically extremely in line with him and with the other people in that sector of the agency, and that that she was considered far more fearsome than the people that we can look up. If you go to Wikipedia and look up T. Contoret and all that sort of thing, there are a bunch of famous names. But she was scarier. She was the one of the real forces. And she, of course, walked away like a ghost and lived out her life as a nice aging lady for the next 45 years. So that's what she has done. And so nobody ever mentioned her name, or she did not enter the popular culture or the academic understanding of the situation. You can only find some mentions of her. It is these files that show that she was instrumental in these assassination programs and in the psychonaut development. You see, another thing you're going to find a little bit, perhaps, I don't know how cynical Carl Henrik is, but Sweden in these agencies played off the KGB and the CIA like a musician, right? And so the CIA was convinced they were getting all this great information about the KGB from the Swedes, and the KGB is convinced that they're getting all this great information about the Americans from the Swedes. And Sweden is just that the agencies are picking and choosing what they're going to say just to maintain that a certain small country on the western shore of the Baltic is not going to have any trouble from these bastards.
No.
Right. So you can see that this is why information bled in both directions, but only insofar as this agency wanted it to.
Yeah.
Right.
To remain neutral.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Mm-hmm. But this is all good.
Yeah, I mean, Switzerland, my ass. Sweden kicks ass on that part. On that tactic.
This is all. This adds up. Can I have? Is there any information about the things that was found in the sea connected to this?
Oh, sure. A couple of things. The thing that, first of all, it's not the things that were found in Goteborg. Those are more recent. Okay, so those date you got your powers in 2011.
Yeah,
and that's exactly when the vessel appeared. It was discovered in the ocean or became active there in Goteborg. The story that should interest you more of what these files are all about concern the Baltic, and they start with the raising of the Vasa. And they start with the which is in the early 60s, yeah. And then, but the research into its contents really began in the 1980s. And basically, to be a little bit sinister, something came up with it.
with Vasa,
Yeah.
the Vasa.
And so, and it's not, I would love to say from the deepest and darkest depths, but it's just the Stockholm harbor. So it's not really the deepest, darkest depths. But it came up anyway, okay, for whatever drama that is worth. And so and who knows, if you want to get all sorcerous and occult, the human sacrifice to the gods of war, in the form of the sinking of the Vasa is symbolic enough for all of us. But
I'm reading all this, and I'm turning towards Huffsman, and I'm saying, what's the connection between the psycho space, what do you call this, like the inner space, and the deep sea? Why do these these two?
If you're asking me, it's for me the connection is the dreamer.
It's obvious to you. What do you it's like, do you not?
The dreamer.
Right?
Yes.
And the dreamer is your grandfather.
No, it's not my grandfather. The dreamer is someone who is trying to communicate from the sea through dreams and visions sometimes.
All right.
And it's also someone that is sort of calling us, or people like me, I guess. My mom and dad and my grandfather, we could all feel it and dream it.
All right, good.
Let's carry on with.
So there is some sort of psychological connection there, but
right. Well, the depths of the mystic depths of the ocean and the mystic depths of the psyche and the mystic depths of space do seem to connect quite strongly, or even be synonymous in some way that you don't use modern physics to explain.
Or maybe
this is what you get. This is Ulf's fault for bringing in all this Cthulhu bullshit.
Yeah.
There's no Cthulhu bullshit.
But I think this is what you really to explain this. You really need new physics.
Mm-hmm. And so here's something else I want to tell you. The last bit, I promise, which is that whatever it was that was being the 1980s research, the Black Ops research that was carrying on. The technology. I have here, it says SSB, and I'll have to try to figure out what I meant by that. But the point is that kind of technology, which was repurposed for military and darker aims, was actually being taken to Kosovo via the Baltic nations, which in the 90s were a perfect place to launder your clandestine, transport. So it was being taken on the Estonia, which is supposed to be a cruise ship, but was being used to ferry military material all the time. And so in this case, this is what was being taken over to ultimately be sent to aid NATO efforts in Kosovo in the mid-90s. And so that's what was in the Estonia. And apparently, if you are trying to think about this, that your parents were trying to stop it. And so you'll have to learn more about your parents particularly, but the name of what happens to the Estonia, you finally get a name. It is in English, which is stench.
Stench.
Yes, and I'm quite interested. I should have looked this up. I wonder what stench is in Swedish. That particular name of. It's not just smell or odor. It's a
stank.
Stank.
Swedish. Stank.
Okay. Yeah, stank. So yeah, that's a great. It's so there is a person or an activity or something like that. That's what happens to that ship. That's what basically destroyed it, and or destroyed it in the course of your parents' attempt to stop it. And so you may be interested to know that in reality, in actual nonfiction, that the wreck has been treated very strangely.
Yep.
That it has been attempted to bury it with concrete for some reason.
Yeah.
And also that there was in 1995 something called the International Estonia Agreement that said that nobody is allowed to come close to it, that there will be no investigation, that it is guarded by the Finnish Navy ever since. So it's just fucking weird. Why is the wreck of this cruise ship, entombed in concrete, has an international agreement not to go anywhere near it, and has a military navy whose job, one of their jobs today, is always to check on what's going on down there. Thank you very much. And that's real. So that's kind of fun if you like that sort of thing, right?
If you like conspiracy theories, this is what.
And if you don't like conspiracy theories, then why are they fucking doing that anyway, right? I want the non-conspiracy explanation. Thank you, right?
Yeah.
That would be nice. So anyway, but fortunately, it feeds into our story very nicely.
Yes.
So so that's what you have found out quite a lot. But the most important thing that you should know is basically that, Bengtsson has come home.
Berntsson.
And he has, Bengt Berntsson, sorry. Berntsson has come home and he has found his old boss and colleague, and he's brought her there too. And he has basically landed, and and it is unknown what has happened there, except for the fact that we now have kind of a crazy circumstance there.
I want to say something about this, because Bengt Berntsson, he might be a really evil guy in many senses, but the way I think this is going to a good place, because he was lost before and he has come home now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
silver lining. He's finally come home. He found his way.
Yeah, I think this
How
is.
can we punch him, please?
Yeah. We have discovered the idealist between the two of you, I think. Right? Yes.
I mean, I think that's a good thing. I think it's much easier to like fight him on our dimensions, because he was really hard when he was inside that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That was I was not comfortable there. I think
No, I don't think you were.
No, but now I really want to know: did we get the helicopter?
Exactly.
Well, if you are making that connection, then yes, you will.
I will.
In fact, it's Hankvist is actually joined by. Well, you will have somebody else to meet in a moment, but they have a lot more information now that he is returns eventually to the mainland, and they also, no thanks to you, and he is also extremely concerned. I mean, he says, this is beyond us, and I'm going to move a little bit quickly in the interests of our own time tonight, simply to the helicopter situation. He has introduced you to where did this go? Yes, back from page to page to page, and so yes, you are introduced to an American named Manny Marcos, who is he was the liaison to let's see, yes, to the modern KSI, Kontorer för särskild inhämtning, and so he was the CIA liaison to them. But he is turning now to Must, because he is saying we are in a disastrous situation. And the disastrous situation is not really necessarily Grand Sikh-pen, which they didn't really know much about. Actually, they're not really all that clear on this. But the real problem is that the compromise of Sogn is of great interest to Luxembourg.
Right.
Notice that these guys do not say Brussels like everybody else says. They say Luxembourg.
Yeah.
Right. And they're quite concerned. The last thing they want, they say, if they get involved, this could be a disaster for everyone. We don't always agree on among our agencies, we don't always agree about the proper course for Sweden relative to all these things. But one thing we know is we do not want the full weight of NATO and the Euro and the EU. They do not want the full weight of those descending upon Sweden.